The evolving and the contentious discussion around the definition of terrorism, particularly after Axel Rudakabana's conviction, uh, and the need to, or the possibility of expanding the scope of terrorist legislation. Central to the case is Rudakabana, the Southport killer, whose actions challenged the existing parameters of terrorism legislation. And the merits and the potential pitfalls of redefining terrorism, I think, are something that will need to be considered carefully. It's not as simple as demanding an apology from the Prime Minister, as Nigel Farage tries to do. Under the Terrorism Act 2000, terrorism is defined as acts of violence or threats designed to influence governments or intimidate the public with the purpose of advancing a political, religious, racial, or ideological cause. So this definition emphasizes subversion, violence with a purpose, with an intention to alter social or government structures. It's not simply a matter of violence itself. It's violence and intention, these two things together. It's not quite the same definition that you would get in Europe. Rudakabana's fascination with violence for its own sake does not fit the current framework. Yet his acts, whether inspired by religious fundamentalism, by ISIS, by Al-Qaeda, it doesn't make him a Muslim terrorist. And it certainly doesn't make him a terrorist under the current definition of the law. Labeling acts like his as terrorism could appropriately reflect public outrage and certainly reflects the level of widespread fear that his acts cause and that he has caused. Widening the definition could unlock the resources of counter-terrorism units, providing police and MI5 with greater investigative powers. Early interventions could prevent atrocities by lone actors motivated by notoriety or nihilism. And applying terrorism laws could enable preemptive measures such as prosecuting preparatory acts or enhancing post-release monitoring of offenders. But you don't need to expand the definition of terrorism in order to expand the policing resources to look at preemptive measures. This broader test, blurring the boundaries of what is and what is not terrorism as such as violence clearly intended to terrorize, risks encompassing domestic violence, gang activity, even extreme hooliganism, and these acts lack the ideological or the political dimensions integral to terrorism itself. MI5 and counter-terror police already face significant threats from ISIS to state-sponsored cyber sabotage, and expanding the definition could overwhelm their capacity, diluting forces on genuine terrorist threats. Redefining terrorism risks applying severe counter-terror measures to acts driven by personal or non-ideological motives. Such a move could result in excessive surveillance and potential miscarriages of justice. Jonathan Hall, KC, the independent reviewer of terrorism legislation, suggests creating a separate framework to address non-ideological ultra-violence. And this approach would sit alongside counter-terrorism, avoiding definitional dilution while addressing emerging threats. And the PREVENT programme must evolve to tackle modern radicalisation. Today's bedroom radicals absorb violent ideologies from the internet, simply from looking at online content. And part of the problem is the algorithm that tailors the content to what you're already looking at. So those people who say everybody thinks this, everybody doesn't think this. The algorithm tells you that everybody thinks it because that is all you see. And to tackle the bedroom radicals requires imaginative and tech-savvy intervention. Broadening the definition of terrorism to include extreme violence without subversion risks undermining the clarity and the focus of current legislation. And while cases like Rudakabana's highlight gaps in the system, they also caution against overreach. A tailored approach Balancing public protection with proportionality is essential to address these challenges without overloading existing counter-terrorism frameworks.